Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games. Today I'm going back to the PC adventure games that I love so much, and I'm teaming up with another adventure game lover. You might even call him the Adventure Game Geek.
Hi, I'm Steven and I'm here to talk about adventure games.
We're looking at a game that involves motorcycles, mechanics, and murder.
Oh, and don't forget exploding bunnies.
It's Full Throttle.
Full Throttle is a point-and-click adventure game developed by LucasArts and released in 1995. After too many years of it not being available anywhere but the original discs, a remastered version was released in 2017, which included updated visuals and sounds. I played the remaster for this review. This is one of many LucasArts games helmed by Tim Schafer. In Full Throttle, you play Ben, leader of the biker gang, the Polecats. Ben and his gang get framed for the murder of motorcycle magnate Malcolm Corley. You have to work to clear his name and expose the real killer. The cast of characters is small but memorable. Malcolm Corley, before he's killed at least, is an affable older man who, though he's a CEO of a big corporation, has a biker's spirit. Early on in the game, after your own bike gets wrecked, you meet Marlene the mechanic, who gives you some quests to fetch the things she'll need for repairs. She's a no-nonsense kind of woman with a great sense of loyalty and a love for motorcycles.
The villain is Adrian Rittberger, who is voiced by none other than Mark Hamill.
And speaking of Mark Hamill, there's also a few Star Wars references thrown in for good measure.
Help me, Ben! You're my only hope!
At the Demolition Derby, for example, the contestant on the left looks kind of like George Lucas, who also makes an appearance in The Secret of Monkey Island as a fish-loving troll. Then there's the biker gang called the Cavefish. Well, there are two panthers down there, but... Wait, no, they're sand people, alright. I can see one of them now. The Cavefish are a mysterious and deadly force that I really wanted to find out more about. As their name suggests, they live in a secret cave that you can only find with special goggles. And even then, Ben doesn't get far.
I don't spelunk.
Hey, what did he say? Spelunk? Let me look that up. Spelunking. The hobby or practice of exploring caves. Huh, I learned something today. The Cavefish aren't just a ruthless biker gang, they also have their own culture and superstitions.
My brothers, we have been visited by a spirit.
There's a religious aspect to the Polecats as well in the character of Father Torque, who's retired from the gang and now spends his time looking for trouble.
You're picking fights?
That's what the old mine road's for, sir.
So does this mean we get to do some fighting in this game? Well, as we'll find out, you can't make it in Full Throttle without beating up some bikers.
You don't.
Or the other way around.
Full Throttle features a fair amount of action and combat. But not just any combat, you fight while you're riding a motorcycle. While you're cruising, you can run into members of opposing gangs, and you need to take them out. Using your fists, or weapons you find, like chains and 2x4s, you have to hit the other rider while avoiding their attacks. These parts of the game handle surprisingly well with mouse and keyboard, and add a bit of action. The point-and-click interface in Full Throttle is a bit different than many of the LucasArts games that came before it. Rather than displaying a list of verbs on screen, you get a contextual pop-up when you click on something that can be interacted with. You can choose between using your hands, feet, eyes, or mouth on things. This sounds exceptionally unhygienic, but the mouth command is mostly used to talk to other people.
I'm not putting my lips on that.
Conversation is also a big part of the game and is used to gather information and find out what to do next. There are dialogue puzzles where you need to choose the correct response in order to progress.
In this scene, for example, Ben is about to be torn to pieces by the same motorbikes he lives his life by, and has to choose his words carefully to save himself. If you're like me though, you'll want to choose every dialogue option anyway, and watch Ben getting pulled over and over again.
Rat bike riding rubber-covered vultures.
If you're waiting for Ben to die a grisly death right now, you've come to the wrong place. This is a LucasArts game, not Sierra. By that I mean that you don't die 1,000 deaths and there's not as much need to save often.
There are a number of typical point-and-click adventure inventory puzzles to do, from finding items for Marlene to figuring out how to get into areas you're not supposed to be in. These puzzles range in difficulty and are a bit hit or miss for me. I found some puzzles difficult to solve just because it wasn't clear an area of the screen could be interacted with. For example, when trying to access a fuel tower you weren't supposed to be near, alarms would go off anytime you touched it, and police would chase you away. The solution to this was to hide in a dark area of the screen, but to me at least, it was not at all obvious I could do this. A lot of puzzles are also time-based. At the fuel tower, if you don't hide in time, you'll see a scene of Ben getting chased out of the area, and you'll have to go back and try again. At the end of the game, there's a time-based puzzle where you can die if you don't act quickly enough. Though this isn't bad in theory, in practice it means watching scenes over and over until you get it right.
The most memorable puzzle for me is figuring out how to get across this minefield. Fortunately, I had a box of wind-up fluffy bunnies to help me. That's it! Go, my minions, go! Clear a path for me! Your sacrifice will not be in vain! Great, I can walk across now.
I don't want to set off any of these boys.
Oh, bollocks.
There's one particular action scene in the game where the controls are keyboard-smashingly frustrating.
At one point, you take part in a demolition derby, where you have to drive a car and ram into other cars to disable them. This scene uses top-down tank controls, the worst kind of controls. Throughout this scene, which felt like it lasted an hour, I got battered and pushed around by other cars. Just when I'd finally get the car going where I wanted it to, someone would come along and push me off course. By the time I got through this part of the game, I was very angry, and it really put a damper on my enjoyment of the later parts of the game. One positive thing that really stands out about Full Throttle is how you travel through the world. When you're without your bike, you get a small overworld map where you can travel between scenes. When you have your bike, you ride down the highway and choose where to turn off to get where you need to go. One thing I absolutely love is that if you double-click at the edge of a screen, you'll automatically travel to the next one without having to watch the entire walk animation. This is something that wasn't present in earlier LucasArts games and is greatly appreciated. Every 2D adventure game should have this. Though I appreciate the option to skip watching Ben walk across the screen, I have to say that the animation in the game is very well done and has a great art style. Likewise, the voice acting is top-notch, and this is one of the few LucasArts games to use licensed music by the Gone Jackals.
Who do you ride with these days?
He rides with me. Although I'm sure he'd much rather be riding with your little club.
I told you to wait out in the limo, Ripburger.
I thought you might like some help with your sales pitch, sir.
Aesthetically, everything comes together to create a biker fantasy that is both futuristic and strikingly grounded. Which brings us to the remaster.
I think the Full Throttle remaster was perfectly done. They kept the spirit and style of the original game, they just gave it a better resolution and smoothed out the pixels.
Unlike with The Secret of Monkey Island, whose remastered art I've complained about in another review, Full Throttle doesn't change things too much. In fact, with my nostalgia-colored glasses on, and having been a couple decades since I played the original, when I first put on the remaster, I thought, wow, this is exactly how it looked before. Of course, by toggling between old and new graphics, which you can do at any time, it's clear this isn't the case. The visuals and sounds are cleaned up considerably, But, importantly, the characters and environments still look and feel the same. They also retain the original voice acting rather than try to recreate it.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Pam. I never played the original, so I'm not looking at it with the same rose-tinted specs, but I think the remaster is an entirely faithful upgrade that doesn't make unnecessary changes. In the case of Monkey Island, I felt like the remastered graphics took away from the atmosphere and made everything look too cartoony. Full Throttle, however, doesn't lose any of its gasoline-guzzling and asphalt-burning badassery. The remaster also comes fully throttled with bonus material, such as concept art for many of the locations and characters, including Somebody Mean, and an extensive commentary from the game development team on many of the scenes in the game.
Are we using the Rebel Assault engine yet? Oh wait, yeah, my nude scene's coming up. Everybody cover your eyes. Nobody look.
There it is. Oh, there it is, right.
The only
Decent
difference...
exposure.
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody, for that.
Not only that, but there's a handy jukebox which doesn't just play all the music tracks, you can also listen to each piece of commentary without playing through the game. It's also worth sticking around for the end credits as there's some amusing references, such as thanks to all these cats except for Tim, who doesn't endorse cat ownership, and a special section of biker haikus. On the road for days, 2 wheels, an engine, and me. I don't brush my teeth. And then, just as the credits come to an end, the bunnies make their final appearance hopping into the sunset.
Full Throttle is a fairly short game, lasting around 4 hours, but I wouldn't want it to be any longer. I think it does what it needs to do in that time, and I really like how it wraps things up. I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that in the end, you beat the bad guy, but the ending still manages to be quite mature and bittersweet. While not all of it works for me, some of the puzzles are frustrating and require a lot of repetition to get right, and the demolition derby would have been better left on the cutting room floor, I appreciate the novelty of Full Throttle. The setting is unique, and it feels more like a grown-up LucasArts game.
What do you think, Steven?
Well, I admit it's not the kind of adventure I usually play. It's a little different from King's Quest, Black Mirror, or Myst, for example. In any case, I appreciate its originality and boldness. I mean, how many adventure games are there about biker gangs? Let alone bikers that play the piano.
Play.
I'd recommend Full Throttle if you're an adventure game fan. Though it's not one of LucasArts' best in terms of gameplay, it's got some great voice acting and cinematics, and the presentation is fantastic. Plus, it won't take too long to get through. I also want to thank the Adventure Game Geek for being part of this review. Be sure to go and check out his channel, which will be linked on the end screen and in the description below.
If you want more, check out my review of The Secret of Monkey Island, or another video. Don't forget to visit the Adventure Game Geek and subscribe to his channel for more adventure game reviews. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I thank the Lord each day through the apocalypse.